Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Today I'm going to be doing a buyer's guide for the Dragon Age role-playing game. There's not a lot to talk about here. There's not a ton of items out for this system, and I'm only going to be looking at things that I would consider to be still in print, or things that hadn't been replaced by future updated versions or variants. So I'm not going to be talking about the box sets. I'm not going to be talking about the original Game Master's kit. I'm going to be looking at the stuff that's new, or that would be readily or currently available or able to be purchased. Things that are still, as far as I know, still in print. This is a fantastic role-playing game. I love the world of Thedas, the Dragon Age world. It's sort of this, it's a fantasy RPG where everything's sort of a shade of gray. There's no, like, heroes can do horrible things, and horrible, merciless villains can be virtuous at times as well. It's just a really well done world. I mean, the video games that it's based off of had a ton of lore in it. There was hundreds and hundreds of pages of text that they had developed to flesh out the world, and that sort of carried over into the role-playing game itself. This uses the Age system, which was actually developed for this game, or at least it was the first appearance of it that I can think of. And considering that this is called Dragon Age and the mechanics are called the Age system, I think it makes sense that this is where it first started. It uses 3d6, two of which will match one another, and the third will stand out. That third one is considered to be your dragon die, and that can be used for things like tiebreakers in the event of a contested roll. Whoever has the higher number on their dragon die would be considered the victor. It can also be used to generate stunt points. The number on the dragon die, in the event that you roll doubles on any combination of the three dice, that you can use to spend to modify your attack rolls, or it can be used for exploration or role-playing or spellcasting. It's a very diverse system, and it's something that makes every roll worthy of everyone's attention. The few times that I've had to actually run this, that's the one thing that I noticed, is that everyone was glued to the table and the die rolls to see if stun points were generated. And it just means that, attacks or skill checks or any kind of roll that you're making, any kind of check that you're making, can go beyond just simple success or failure, because you can generate these stun points and spend them to do some interesting things. So it's a really fantastic system. There's 3 classes in there, but each class has several different specializations that you can choose from, and the races are changed, or they're done in sort of like backgrounds. So you can have, so for example, instead of just having human, there's like a dozen or so different nationalities or different sort of backgrounds for humans that you can use. So it's just a very diverse thing. I mean, you could have an entire party of like dwarves, and like 4 players playing dwarves, and they all come from a different background. So just a lot of great stuff as far as that is concerned. And it's just a really fun system. This core rulebook, which is the first thing that you're going to need if you want to run or play the Dragon Age game, has everything. It is literally an all-in-one book, and I could really end the video here by saying that this is all that you need, and good night. But I'm going to go into a little bit more detail. But this, like I said, for the fact that it is all in one, it is fantastic. Now, it is a thicker book, so it is more expensive than, say, something like a Dungeons and Dragons Player's Handbook. But again, you're getting the Player's Handbook, the Game Master's Guide, and the Monster Manual, or Bestiary, or whatever you want to call it, all in one. Plus, there are 3 adventures included here as well, 2 of which, the second and third adventures, were reprinted from the previously released box sets, which have been long since out of print and ridiculously expensive. The third one in particular was very, very limited in its release, so it's not worth trying to get those, in my opinion, just because of how expensive some of those sets have gotten. But everything that's in those sets is reproduced in here. The only exception is the very first introductory adventure for first level characters. It does not port over the set 1 adventure, and instead they designed a whole new adventure to use in this book, which gives this book something more than just a compilation of all the box sets. It does give itself a little bit of unique content there as well. But yeah, this is a fantastic core rulebook. And as far as like core rules go, or core rulebooks go, this is very, very high on my list of favorites of all time. So really fantastic stuff there. So this is the first thing that I would recommend getting. Everything else is essentially geared towards the game master. So if you're a player, that's really all that you need, is the core rulebook. And one could argue that really only the game master needs the core rulebook, but I think it's important that people have access to their abilities and stuff like that. But so for the game master, the next thing that I would recommend picking up would be the revised Game Master's Kit. Now, I did an unboxing video of this already, and I've done videos on some of the other things I'm talking about here as well, so I'm not going to go into a ton of detail here, but this is basically your GM screen, but it comes with so much more. So this is not just a single sheet or page that they use to have the barcode on. This is actually a full adventure that is like 36 pages, so 35 if you don't count the actual cover itself, and full color, something that the original Game Master's Kit just had a black and white printed adventure on what felt like just regular sort of stock paper, but this one has a more like glossy sort of professional look and feel to it, and it is full color, which is fantastic. This revised kit was released essentially to sort of re-release the game aids that came in the box sets. That was sort of one of the primary things there. So you have things like a combat tracker, as well as a list of certain rules that you might need at a quick glance, something that you may not use necessarily often, but if it comes up, it's nice to have the quick reference card here. So we have that on the other side of the combat tracker. And then we just have some, your list of actions, major and minor actions, your ability focuses. So for each ability score, like Constitution, Strength, what have you, it gives you all of the focuses, which focuses are kind of like skills in other games. So it gives you that full list there, which again is great stuff to have. And then we have our stunt charts, which is another awesome part of the game. Again, we have our ability, so we have some multiple copies there for the Game Master to use and the players to have, sort of one that they can share amongst them. So great stuff there. And an absolutely gorgeous Game Master screen, a 3-paneled screen. And the artwork is just fantastic. Now, the artwork on the original screen was also good, but I have to say that I like this one so much better. It has just a more realistic sort of... the art, I think, captures the spirit of the video games really well, and the information on the inside is also very useful as well. Things like the test difficulty numbers, armor information if you're casting spells, attack roll modifiers, some stunts, some of the basic stunts that you may come across, weapon charts, armor charts, just a lot of useful stuff to have on the screen itself. So that is another worthwhile purchase. I guess I should also mention the MSRPs for these things before I get too far in, even though I'm halfway done the items, honestly. So $60 US for the hardcover book, which comes in at about, 400, 500 pages? Where are we at here? So about 440 pages for the core rulebook. Also comes with a fold-out map that's double-sided. One side shows Ferelden, which is the location where the first video game took place, which is one of the nations within the main continent there. And then the other side shows the larger world. So it gives you Ferelden, which is a small section of that other side of the map. And then you have the Free Marches, that you have Orlais. It's just really fantastic, beautiful design maps that come with the book as well. And the Game Master's Kit is $25 US. Alright, up next, another thing that I might recommend is the supplement Blood in Ferelden. And what this is a collection of adventures. Just gives you some pre-written adventures to work into your game, as well as several what are referred to as like adventure seeds, which are some basic ideas that you can expand upon to make larger adventures. again, there's just a lot of really useful information here. So there is the, oops, so there is the adventure seeds. Now this is black and white. Unfortunately, it would have been nice to have had this in color, but there's still a lot of really, fantastic artwork in here. And the adventures themselves are pretty decent. If I were to pick up and run a Dragon Age campaign, I would probably use this book in order to do that, at least to start off with. And the price is, again, the same as the Game Master screen at $24.95 US. And then finally, because we're already at the finally, we have Dragon Age Faces of Thedas. This was, I recently actually did a review of this book, so if you want to check out that video in full, it includes the flip through and my thoughts on it. Essentially what this is a book filled with iconic NPCs from the video game series. Now, it doesn't include absolutely everyone, because you're talking about 3 different games with lots of characters to interact with, and this is a thinner supplement. So I think to keep it affordable, really just to focus on sort of the, I think the more fan favorite characters, and I hate to say that because there are some that people really like that aren't in here, but I think that they did a really good job with the characters that they included. It gives you their stat blocks as well as some possible or some suggestions for progressing them if you want to level them up to match maybe where the characters are, or be a little bit above or be a little bit below, what have you. It also has some interesting alternative stat blocks for some of the characters, depending on the choices that you want to make or that you made in your playthroughs of the video games that you want to reflect in the actual RPG. Like Alistair, for example, the Grey Warden, one of the main characters from the first game, he could either become the King of Ferelden, just another Grey Warden, maybe a legendary Grey Warden, but just a Grey Warden, or he could become a drunkard in the event that you make certain choices. And it gives the stat blocks for the drunk version of him as well, in which he actually loses levels because he just doesn't have the reflexes or the toughness anymore because of his state of inebriation. So just really, really cool stuff there. It gives you some organizations as well, and it goes into some pretty good details on them. So the core rulebook gives you the framework you can use to create organizations, but this gives you things like the Carta, which is like a dwarven criminal organization. It gives you like the Cunari information on like their religious organization. Just again, fantastic stuff in here, and really, really useful from that. And then finally, there is the relationship mechanic, which sounds like it's meant to be like romantic, but it can really be anything. Family bonds, friendship. It can be romance as well if that's the way that you want to run your game. But it's actually a really interesting system, and it's sort of rewards you again for developing your character's backstory and for interacting with NPCs and having those relationships sort of evolve and grow or become more hostile or worse over time. So overall, it's a really interesting book. But this is probably, I would say, of the 4 products that really exist for this setting, for this game at this point in time. And I mean, there's stuff like dice sets that I don't have. But of all the things that I've shown here, this is probably the one that might be the most skippable, which is a shame because it is a great book, and it does retail at $35, so $34.95 US. But the thing is, it is a book of NPCs, so half the book is those NPCs, or maybe even a little bit more than half of the book is just dedicated to non-player characters. So if you don't really want to use those, like for example, you like the role-playing game but you never played the video games, then there's no reason for you to want to add them into your game, sort of thing. So I can see why some people may want to pass on that. The information on organizations and the relationship mechanic, I think, is strong enough that even if you're not interested in the NPCs, it still might be a worthwhile purchase. But it's one of those things that you really have to think about how much of that information you would really want to use in your game. I think it's great. I regret that I took as long as I did to buy it. But it's, again, a really niche thing, and of the products that I've discussed here, like I said, it is probably the one that is like the most, as I said, sort of skippable. But overall, it's a really solid RPG, and there's not a ton to collect for it. So this is something that would be easy to get a complete collection of currently available stuff. The only things that are missing from this video are the box sets and the original Game Master screen, but the revised one is way better, I think, in a lot of ways. And like I said, the box sets are just so expensive. For really, all the same information is in the core rulebook. The only thing I can say that would make going after the box sets remotely worth it is the fact that set 1 has a different introductory adventure, but I don't think that's enough to justify the ridiculous prices, sometimes in the hundreds of dollars, that I've seen those box sets posted for. So again, a very small RPG to collect for, but a really fun one to collect for, and more so than collecting for it, it's a fun RPG to play and to run. And like I said, I would really love to see this take off, a bit more, and have some more people really get into what is a fantastic RPG. So anyway, that is the buyer's guide. Like I said, not a lot to talk about, but some pretty solid things. The small number is a small number, but everything is well done, and it's easy to justify every single one of these things in your collection. Core rules, obviously. The Game Master's kit, again, not just the GM screen, but a fully fleshed out adventure and a bunch of useful game aids, and then the Blood and Ferelden, which is a collection of published adventures, which, again, maybe that's something that you're not interested in, but they also help give you a feel for the world. And I think that's an important part as well, because you can get some of that from reading the descriptions of the geography and stuff, but seeing the way that these adventures are structured, I think, is one of the best ways to sort of learn what sets this world apart from some of the more standard fantasy worlds. Anyway, let me know in the comments below if any of you have picked up the Dragon Age RPG. Which of these items do you have, or which of these items are you not interested in, or were you able to find set 3, the box set for set 3? Because it's just, I refuse to believe that it ever touched the ground in Nova Scotia at all. But anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Take care.